Hey butterflies, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today I want to talk about King in Black. I wanted to focus on this issue. I know it's a little late. I know it's a Christmas edition. So this was a silent comic and not much was said, which is what I loved. They kept it so simple to just illustrate how important the inner child is to us, even as an adult. Eddie's always like, I need to protect my son at all costs because my son does not deserve this. He doesn't deserve what I went through. He deserves his innocence. He deserves his childhood. And they say, do as I say, not as I do to kids. And we all know kids don't give a shit. They do as you do. So the issue with Eddie and Dylan is that he wants to give his kid everything that he's incapable of giving himself. It gives me very much those vibes of parents who have children and they mold them into everything that they want it to be. Instead of actually doing what they wanted, healing that part of them, they project that onto their child and expect them to be a certain way and move a certain way. And it's interesting, not just with Eddie, but a lot of us, the way we talk about children, we're like, oh, they have so much, they have so much life ahead of them. They don't know what reality is even about. They have their innocence. And it's like saying, once you experience life, then that's taken away from you. And it's true, that does happen. There is a certain point where it's like that spark kind of feels like it's taken away from us and that innocence is taken away from us. But we can definitely reclaim that innocence. I have been in the process of reclaiming that innocence myself. And it's not easy when you've been through a lot of trauma, but I do want to say it's possible. And there is a big difference between being naive and being innocent. There is a part of life that you can experience it in a pure way, in a way where you see everything as a potential and believe that anything is possible. If you think about yourself as a child, you didn't think about what were the repercussions of things. You just wonder and wander because you want to explore, you want to experience. And with life experiences, as we get older, we learn to think before we act, which is, of course, a valuable lesson, but it's integrating the two, right? It's integrating what we've learned from our traumas and our experiences and in our healing process, and also our childlike nature. So with Eddie, he keeps wanting to give his child, his innocence, but he doesn't have it for himself. And it's like, why can't you have it, Eddie? Come on, like, why can't you have it? And it's hard to teach and impart something on somebody that you're incapable of experiencing and feeling yourself. Now, let me get to Hulk. They kept this very simple, and I love I love the depiction, like you see him looking like a big kid. He literally looks like a big kid. So when he sees this toy that he wanted to play with back in his childhood days, he goes through a roller coaster of emotion because it triggers him to be like, "Oh my God, I want to play with that." And then at the same time, it triggers, the subconscious language is just like, "Oh my God, you were never able to get that, and this happened when that happened." And I have done a specific video on the Hulk and his subconscious language, how he struggles with suicide and his anxiety, his depression. So I'll link that down below. And there is a lot of information on this already. It's one of the first, it's the foundational step when you start becoming aware and dealing with your triggers and your subconscious, because it starts with our childhood always. And of course, that also depends on our level of awareness, the type of information and knowledge that we come across, and if our, if our ego and our defense mechanisms are receptive to that type of information. And that's just one part of it, becoming aware, dealing with it, healing from it so that they are no longer your triggers. So to then integrate that healing aspect into feeling is a whole other aspect. It feels very difficult for our mind to take that risk with our heart space to say, yeah, I want to feel this way and I want to jump into this, because it's a risk. Because we've taken that risk before, maybe once, maybe multiple times, maybe over and over again, until we were finally like, you know what, this is the last straw. And now you're like, I can't jump back into it even if I wanted to because I'm emotionally exhausted. And everything is so circumstantial and situational that our reconnection to our inner child is tailored to our own experiences. But what I will say is the commonality that we have of that feeling that's in our heart space that won't leave us alone. Whether that's a person and something that you need to express and be vulnerable about, or whether that's a career or an endeavor, a passion project, something that you really want to do that's in the back of your mind that's always reoccurring. And that's one of the things that brings us back to our innocence, which I know can sound a little counterproductive because it's like, well, what if I do put myself out there and it doesn't work? And now I'm left with this shitty feeling all over again. I know in the movies, when someone expresses their vulnerability, like it just always kind of works out, right? And in real life, it's not really like that. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So my point is, I had this moment and it was really fucking devastating for me, you guys. But it was like a paradox. I took my power back in the power of my voice, the power of my truth, and the power of my expression. Not to say my power was taken away. I took my own power away by minimizing how I felt and my truth. But my point is, yes, there is a possibility of rejection, of abandonment, of not being reciprocated, the same type of vulnerability, or if it's a project of it not taking off the way you wanted it to. But the payoff is so much larger than that. And even if nothing comes out of it, it's a learning curve. There's nothing worse than living with regret. There's nothing worse than not expressing yourself. Because anytime we suppress our words or our feelings, anything that we want to express, whether that's through our words to somebody or through creation, it's creating our shadow. And like they said, if these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. And we are the future is now. And no matter what happens, especially if you're being authentic to your true self and what you'd like to express, it's more than a learning curve. You know, when I had that conversation, it shifted my vibration and my energy like a motherfucker. Was I devastated? Yes. I was so devastated. But at the same time, I was like, wow, this feels really good. And as time went on, it added to that. It was more healing than anything. And I'm bringing all this up because our inner child is, of course, it's about play and having fun, but it's also vulnerability because when we're a child, we wonder and we wander. We do things without thinking. We hurt feelings without thinking about it because we don't know white lies yet. And we tell people we love them and just hug them when we don't know how much that means to them because we're just expressing what we're feeling. We mean what we say and we say what we mean, and that's exactly that. And that's a part of our inner child, and that's a part of us that really gets diminished as we get older because we really want to hold ourselves back because the majority is always on some bullshit. So we have to protect our energy. We have to keep these boundaries and our distances, which is equally important. That's that balance between innocence and being naive, okay? So being innocent, like I said, doesn't mean that you're naive, but it's to implement both. Like you can have your wisdom, you can learn. And that's another thing, you know, the teacher-student relationship. We are always, it's like a yin and yang relationship. We are always both. Even when we're a child, when we're a baby, when we're a kid, we're teaching our parents as much as they're teaching us. We're teaching our teachers just in different ways. And then at a certain point, we become adults and we're more of the teacher, or we feel like more of the teacher than the student. But you know, that's the trick. We have to perpetually be open to being both. And I always say this, that sometimes we feel like life has taught us so many lessons that we're kind of incapable of learning lessons from the intermediate people in our lives because it's our ego and our defense mechanism saying, you know, I've learned enough, I know my lessons, I've been through this, I've been through that, and we block ourselves off to learning even more. And so that's what I really wanted to say about inner child. And we definitely see it reflected in Hulk, the way he gets so giddy over a present. You know, he just sees a present. He's like, oh my God, he's so excited because that's the thing that was always lacking. That's the main connection to him not having his childhood fulfilled. And it's so important for our inner child to be on this journey with us. We have so many archetypes that we embody. There are so many roles that we take on in this lifetime. But the Trinity, if you will, that we will never be apart from is the masculine, the feminine, and the child, the light, the dark, the playfulness. And I'll leave you guys off with one activity that I do to reconnect with my inner child in a physical way. And for me, that's going on the swings. It's very basic. It's something that I've always loved as a kid that I've actually never really stopped. I make more of an effort now to just go on the swings. I go by myself and I just really focus on the sky. I love the air in my face. I love seeing the birds, looking at the sky, staring at the tree. I just love everything about it. So that's my way of really reconnecting with inner child and feeling free, feeling flying free. But the most important thing is to do something that resonates with you and that brings you back to the feeling of that inner child and that innocence, right? But like I said, start off with vulnerability. Okay, start off with following your heart space. So thank you so much, butterflies, for spending your time with me today. Stay flying free and I'll see you next time. Bye.